without the audio. Anyway,
सब
okay.
हम कलकत्ता आ गए.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay. Oh, 1 second. ॐ प्रातः स्मरामि हृदि संस्फुरदात्मतत्त्वम् सच्चित्सुखं परमहं सगतिं तुरीयम् यत्स्वप्नजागरसुषुप्तिमवैति नित्यं तद्ब्रह्म निष्कलमहं न च भूतसङ्गः तपोभिक्षीणपापानां शान्तानां वीतरागाम् मुमुक्षूणामपेक्षोऽयम् आत्मबोधो विधीयते बोधोऽन्यसाधनेभ्यो हि साक्षान्मोक्षैकसाधनम् पाकस्य वह्निवज्ञानं विना मोक्षो न सिद्ध्यति Okay, welcome back to the Bhagavad Gita, the class on the Bhagavad Gita. We'll start with any questions. Are there any questions? Yeah, Ankit or Prachi, go ahead.
Yeah.
So everybody, before Ankit starts this question, everybody owes in advance, you all owe a lot of gratitude to Ankit because I think out of 10 questions, 7 questions he asks. Even in our other class,
No,
which he's a part of. So he's asking questions on all your behalf, because only through questions and only through clarification and only through this kind of deliberation do we truly gain some insight. Otherwise, it's just a monologue from my end to yours, right? So we owe some gratitude to Ankit. So with gratitude, Ankit, please go ahead.
thank you. So in the last class, we were speaking about Bhishma towards the end. So basically, we were discussing about the mistakes, a person might make through ignorance, through perhaps incorrect assessment of what their dharma truly is, or just through, a wrong application of facts at the time. And later on, so it's a question in two parts. Later on, you might come to realize that you made certain mistakes for such factors after making those mistakes. So what would be the correct way to sort of see those mistakes and assess them and sort of assimilate them into what is your journey, right? Like how do you deal with those mistakes or respond to them? Like, do you regret them, or do you like sort of learn from them, just forgive yourself for them and aspire to do better, etc. And secondly, like you had said, or we had talked about that, why do we look up to Bhishma, or we don't. I mean, if a person has made mistakes, and then does that put a ceiling to their spiritual development as well, or how much they can progress on the spiritual path or overall?
I'll answer your second question first. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says that even the worst of sinners, the word uses, even the worst of sinners can cross over this bridge of ignorance through the knowledge, right?
Okay.
So forget a mistake, you could be a vicious person doing terrible things. The power of knowledge is such that it can completely transform you and make you cross any spiritual threshold. There is no such threshold, right? Nature is very, very forgiving. The world is very, very forgiving. It's humans who are not forgiving. We create these laws and rules and funny boundaries on ourselves. And we feel a lot of guilt. You said, what should we feel if we make a mistake? Should we feel guilt? And guilt is a trap. What's the point of feeling guilty, or what's the point of feeling regret? Right?
Yeah.
Nature is very forgiving. See, look at your own choices day by day. You can use and abuse your body for years and years and years. Just a couple of days, not even weeks, a couple of days of good treatment to your body, and immediately, it rewards you. The body doesn't say, you have fed me junk for 6 years, I will now keep you suffering for 6 more years. Instantaneously, it'll reward you, right? Um, so nature is very forgiving. So there's no such ceiling. Um, so what should one do? Your first question was, what should one do when one makes such errors in judgment? See, objectivity is required. Some decisions cannot be reversed, right?
Yeah.
Some decisions cannot be reversed. Like mm, making an particular investment. Now, once the money is gone from your account, khatam.
Hmm.
You sit and regret it. No, you require to be objective. You have to sit back and laugh at your silly stupidity, right? You made a bad mistake. You made a bad investment. Okay, try to cover it up. If I would, make it, and where you can make amends, make amends. You're not Bhishma Pitama. You've not taken a vow for life. You're not Bhishma the Terrible, right? So if you've taken certain decisions, and it's good to, have opinions and maybe take some decisions, maybe not impulsively, but even if you've thought about it and taken some decisions, but later realize that, decisions you've made may be erroneous, and they can be changed. Very often they can't be changed.
Yeah.
Things you did, say for example, through your career, lot of things you can't change, right? Once you put in your papers in an organization, you can't, sheepishly go back, and sometimes you can.
Hmm.
Once you choose to study a certain subject and not study a certain subject, depending on which country you are, you can or cannot change it. In India, you can't change it for some weird reason, right? But even then, you've taken a certain decision in your career, you can't suddenly, I mean, it's difficult, right? They have consequences. So where you can change, you make amends. Where you can't, or where the consequences are. So it requires objectivity. That's about it, right? There's no point in sitting back and regretting necessarily, because um, there's no one right path, right? You took a decision based on your capacity, capability at that point. And that itself was your learning. What you realize right now itself is your learning. So there's no one particular lesson you have to learn. There's no one particular thing you have to do. There's no one particular decision you had to make. Every decision you have made has been based on your present circumstance, your present nature is best suited for your spiritual development. Please understand that. You may not be perfect, you may not make the best decisions. Everyone makes mistakes. But it is best suited for your development. You can't live someone else's life, you can't make someone else's decisions. Right? So regret is certainly not the option.
Yeah.
It requires objectivity. The more and more objective you become, you look back and at laugh and you look back at life and laugh at it. Right? You enjoy it. Even some of the worst of circumstances, 10, 15 years later, you laugh at it. You're like, how did I react in that situation like that? Now that I'm laughing, that time I was really terrified. Even big family problems, you sit back and laugh at it. Financial issues or some kind of business problems, issues you faced in your career, issues you faced in your maybe your student life. Sit back and laugh at it. Yeah.
All couples have to be objective about their spouses, the decision.
Yes. Yes. Any further questions or thoughts? Any further questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when we are when we are on the path of righteousness, which is our obligatory duty also, and we are also emotional at any point, is it okay to distance yourself?
Um, no, when you say is it okay, what do you mean? Matlab, is someone
I mean, what is the right thing to do?
yeah, the right thing to do is to be um, see, when we say right also, we don't mean from an altar of judgment.
Mhm.
We don't mean from an altar. See, everyone will act according to their own capacities. Right? And there may be for see, we all need a Krishna in our life,
Mm.
right? Because we all succumb like Arjuna to difficult circumstances. Now, sometimes even Lord Krishna gave Arjuna time to breathe and gulp some water and express himself and vent it out. You can see this period of time right now. Arjuna started his, Krishna hasn't said a word, and he won't say a word for quite some time. That can be taken as time that Krishna is giving Arjuna to just shed his load, whatever he's feeling. So if you're in a emotional situation, okay, uh, actually the right thing to do is to not do anything. So if you say distance yourself, okay, distance yourself. Understand that's not a solution,
Yes, understand.
but up until the point you can't think clearly, please don't commit to anything. Don't take a step. Any step should be taken with clarity of thought, right? So if you find yourself really swaying from one way to the other, wanting really strongly wanting to believe in something at the same time really strongly feeling something else, take a step back. Seek some guidance, right? A lot of people, the problem is they distance themselves, but they don't seek guidance. They keep it as a status quo. They keep it like a stalemate. Stalemate is not the solution. Yeah, distance yourself, take some time off, cool out, cool down, but seek some guidance for the appropriate course of action, right? Uh, we don't talk about our emotions. We don't talk about our psychological, whatever issues we are dealing with, whatever's going on in our head. We think, no, no, it'll figure itself out. That's not the solution, right? Uh, a strong emotional state of mind is a reflection of our psychology. It is our psychology. So, finding people we can share our thoughts with, finding people who we rely on to guide us appropriately, right? It's very important to talk these things out.
I have a question, and I apologize again. My camera is still not online. I'm not sure what's happening to it.
Totally fine.
So when you say seek some guidance, is it guidance from God? Can you just pray and hope to find some clarity, or do you have to seek guidance from a known person or someone with more knowledge or whatever?
Yeah, I wish I wish God was so readily available, through our prayers. If then I would have certainly gone for prayer. You have to be really spiritually evolved to be deeply connected to, say, you can call the voice of the subtle intellect the voice of God, however you want to call it. A lot of times our inner voice is simply our mind manipulating us, telling us what we want to hear. Or I don't know. It's not what I'm saying is not it's not necessarily reliable, right? So while seeking solace through prayer, seeking clarity through quietness in prayer, uh, and ultimately that is the last resort. Okay, you want to call it prayer, you want to call it quietness. Eventually, when you're not able to resolve any dilemma through necessarily, using your buddhi, using your intellect. You resolve to this inner voice, in quietude, in prayer. The voice of your conscience will speak to you. That's totally true, and that is your last resort. That is perhaps the most powerful, right? However, the general guidance given to us, and this is something Swamiji specifically said, is that the voice of the conscience should be the last resort. Means something that should not be leveraged unnecessarily, unless one is quiet by nature, unless one is introvert by nature and one is just at that level. The first way, and we don't have to necessarily jump the gun. The first way is to talk to people around us, and not even necessarily to gurus or masters. Even a lot of times, just articulating one's own feelings and emotions will bring clarity. It's not even about the answers we get from someone else. Even while we are speaking and trying to articulate what is our problem, trying to articulate what is going through our mind, the answers will come to us through our own buddhi, right? It's not necessarily what we hear from others or what they have to tell us. When we try to put our problems in words and actually express what we are going through, a lot of the times our own buddhi will give us a direction, so first and foremost, it is articulating one's own dilemmas. B, seeking guidance either from peers, from people you can rely on, from people whose judgment you think is sound. They are they are essentially doing God's work in your life, right? By giving you guidance, right? And such people are important, and relying on such people and reaching out to such people is important. And then, of course, when you have exhausted all these avenues, when you have tried to employ your buddhi to the best of your ability, then you can go back and, in the depths of your own inner voice, try to search for your ultimate answer, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you.
The problem people make is they just rely on this inner voice without doing everything else. That it's I don't know how useful that is. That may be useful for such people, but I don't know how reliable that is. Yeah, any other questions? Okay, if not, we will start. We'll continue with our discussion on chapter 1. So Arjuna was in the middle of the battlefield. He has gone. He's asked Krishna to place the chariot right there. And having seen his cousins and his teachers and his brethren and his associates and people from his community, he says, "Oh my God, I cannot fight. There's no point in fighting this. Oh Krishna, I see adverse omens. We shouldn't do this. Hi. I don't foresee any good in doing any of this." And then he goes on to say, "I desire not victory, O Krishna, nor kingdom, nor pleasures." Of what avail is kingdom? This is Arjuna's voice. I'm trying to dramatize it in case you didn't understand. Of what avail is kingdom, O Govinda? Of what avail are enjoyments in life? ये सब ऐशो आराम में क्या फायदा है? Says the person who spent lakhs of rupees in going to Goa and going to Bali and going to leisurely holidays. He spends half that time planning the next trip. Imagine such a person speaking like this. See, it's very interesting. Arjuna is lecturing Krishna, right? Opposite of what we want. And the relationship between Arjuna and Krishna is that of friends. It's of, so far it's not of Guru and Shishya. They are peers, they are friends, they are known to each other, they are cousins technically, right? And cousins of pretty much around the same age. I don't know exactly the age difference, or of course Krishna lived to much longer, but I don't know exactly the age difference between them. But technically, they are cousins. So Arjuna doesn't really look at Krishna like a guru. He hasn't surrendered to Krishna yet, right? So he is speaking to Krishna in this sense of and speaking these. See, on first glance, you may think, what a great person Arjuna is. He's sacrificing his own any selfish desire to not cause this terrible war. If one looks at this verse in isolation. However, as we said, there's a history to the Mahabharata. A lot of reconciliation has been attempted. This is not the time to have such thoughts. And it is evidenced that the Pandavas didn't want this. Krishna didn't want this, but Duryodhana had caused this to happen. Second of all, it is certainly not objectively true that Arjuna doesn't have value for kingdom. Arjuna doesn't have value for pleasure. Arjuna really values the kingdom. Arjuna really values pleasure. Arjuna really values enjoyments in life. And that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. The more you evolve spiritually, the more you grow on the spiritual journey, the less and less value you have for mundane enjoyments, for physical, sensual, emotional pleasures in life. That is a fact. But everyone need not be evolved. That's a journey, right? And it's not wrong to enjoy these things. Anyone in this room who will say there's no value in money, there's no pleasure in money, either you are a sannyasi or you're a hypocrite. And chances are you're the latter. Because if you're a sannyasi, you wouldn't come here. You wouldn't waste your time on this class. You already know all this stuff. पैसे में क्या है? Suppose I tell you, पैसे में क्या रखा है? Anybody who says there's no value in money and pleasure, so it's not wrong to have value for these things. As you grow spiritually, as this knowledge soaks into you, you end up developing the right value for them. You end up growing over your dependence and your attachment to these things. Absolutely true. But this doesn't happen overnight, right? What we call samshan or smashan vairagya. Usually in a challenging situation, usually in an emotional jolt, we suddenly become very renunciate. We express these, tendencies of renunciation, which are not actually true, which are not our true feelings. So Arjuna is in a state of smashana vairagya. People get very philosophical for a few days, for a few hours. It's not a permanent state of being. It's not their real sort of feeling. So smashana vairagya as opposed to true vairagya. So what you have to understand is that one's deep inherent nature, it's called vasanas. One's vasanas, they don't change immediately. They don't change just because of a difficult circumstance. They don't change just because of a situation. One may have a temporary change of heart, but that doesn't mean one has changed. And that's what's happening to Arjuna right now. He hasn't actually changed. He's just having a temporary change of heart, one which he will regret. Change is gradual. No change is sudden. Change appears suddenly. Please understand this. Change appears suddenly, but doesn't happen suddenly. A change in one's personality may appear suddenly, right? One may appear suddenly to change the way they do things. But actually a lot of thought, a lot of consideration has been going on in the back before they've actually been pushed to make that amends, right? We used the example of, in a chemistry lab, when you're mixing two chemicals, and you're mixing one colorless chemical with one colorless chemical, drop by drop by drop by drop. 1 drop, nothing happens. 2 drop, nothing happens. 3 drops, nothing happens. 15 drops, nothing happens. 18 drops, nothing happens. 20 drops, nothing happens. Suddenly, 21st drop you make, the colorless chemical turns into a blue chemical. And suddenly there's a smell of rotten eggs, H2S. Don't ask me how it happens. But it happens in a chemistry lab. I don't know if you've experienced it, huh? You're mixing two colorless things, suddenly there's a stench in the entire room, in the entire chemistry lab. Because the gas you've created, the chemical you've created is a smelly chemical. So this change has suddenly happened on the 21st drop. You guys can relate to what I'm saying? You've done it long time back in the chemistry lab. Change has happened suddenly, but it has been going on in the background for a long time. So change is gradual. It doesn't happen suddenly. This change in Arjuna's nature, it won't happen suddenly. It is gradual, right? So it is not true that he doesn't want kingdom. It is not true that he doesn't want pleasures. He wants victory. He's a Kshatriya. He's a warrior by nature, right? He knows the value of kingdom, right? They know the value of righteousness. It is just that in this current emotional circumstance, he is unable to deal with it. And this is what I had mentioned in the end of last class. I said I'll talk about it. We talked about aggressive and passive, right? We talked about Arjuna's being passive right now, and it is precisely this nature, when people are in an emotional state and when they're not able to think clearly, when they lack aggressiveness, when they're passive by nature, they take a back seat. And this is precisely why the aggressive manipulate the passive. Which is exactly why people complain. Why are bad people ruling over good people? Why do good people suffer? It has its source in this kind of behavior. That emotional people are easily manipulated. A person in Arjuna's position, had Krishna not been there, he would have been easily manipulated. And someone else who had been emotional, had he been guiding him, maybe the Mahabharata wouldn't have happened. So what is the aggressive and the passive? I'll just spend a minute to talk about it. It's not directly related to the text. It's something. It's a slight digression, but it's an important concept to consider.
So what you just said, that Mahabharata wouldn't have happened. So there's a lot of allegation by a lot of the so-called leftists that Mahabharata happened only because of Krishna.
There's some things you don't have to heed.
Yeah.
Some things just not worth reacting to. Anyway, so the aggressive and the passive. So human nature, as we were talking about, is broadly of, if you have to study it, and one way to perhaps segregate, and it's a very broad segregation, is of two types. There are those who are aggressive and those who are passive. And what do I mean by aggressive? Aggressive is one who uses their intellect, one who uses their buddhi to observe and assess situations, circumstances. They practice objectivity. So objectivity is a practice of seeing things as they are, the capacity to think, reason, and assess situations as they are. A capacity to judge and decide for oneself. See, very often people confuse intellect to be, just intellectualization, right? Because we use the words, similar words, right? It's like using intellectual concepts. No, that's not the same thing. And as we study, hopefully we'll be able to develop a deeper understanding of what the intellect is. But aggressive as opposed to passive. And what does passive mean? Passive mean one who is driven by the mind, one who relies on feeling and emotion. So before I jump to this, let's talk a minute about the human composition. Now, the human composition is, broadly, you are composed of three equipments, right? You have a physical body with its organs of perception, organs of action, with all these physiological functions, a physical form. But beyond this physical form, you you have the metaphysical almost, right? You have a wonderful realm, a wonderful layer of the non-physical. Now, what is the non-physical personality? The non-physical personality is also, it's not uniform, it's also of two types. One can distinguish. There is the mind and there is the intellect. Within your body, housed within your body, is the seat of the realm of emotions, desires, feelings, likes and dislikes, right? What you broadly call your personality, right? Your feelings, emotions, likes, dislikes, your desires, your wishes, all of these compose your mind. They're the vessel of your emotions. It's literally a vessel. Your mind is different from my mind, is different from a third person's mind because of what is contained in this vessel. What is the quality of the and the kind of the emotions and feelings and desires we possess. But beyond one's emotions, beyond one's feelings and likes and dislikes, one possesses what is called a intellect. The Sanskrit word for it is buddhi. Quite literally, it's buddhi. If you don't have a buddhi, you are a. If you don't have a buddhi, you are.
Animal.
Huh?
Buddhu.
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 Buddhi or a buddhu. Buddhi is one's capacity to think, reason, judge, decide, assess, observe, understand. All these things. I'm trying to find other ways to describe it. One's capacity to think, reason, judge, understand, assess, one's capacity to observe, one capacity to be objective, one capacity to control and regulate. See, the mind with its emotions are like a flow, are like a river. The intellect is like it's like a dam. It's like a regulator. It's one which gives direction and guides. It's one which controls the flow. So these are all the qualities of the buddhi. So the thing is, the way in which nature has made us to be, nature has given us a body. Nature fully develops our body, and to a large extent fully develops our mind also. It gives us this capacity to feel, for the large to a large extent. The buddhi is something you have to develop yourself. No other creature, no other animal has really the capacity to develop the intellect beyond a certain point. All other animals, they're given a rudimentary intellect. A dog is given a rudimentary intellect. You can't teach a dog anything. You can't help a dog grow, psychologically in that sense. You can't help an animal grow their intellect. A human alone has a capacity to grow and develop this quality, this thing called a buddhi. A body and mind is given to everyone. Every human being has a body and mind, like every animal has a body and mind. But an intellect alone is something that a human will have to develop. And the extent to which you develop your buddhi, to that extent, you will not only succeed spiritually, but also succeed materially. Even material success is largely dependent on intellect. Those who have a developed intellect are far more successful than those who don't. So your capacity to think, reason, judge, decide, understand, assess, all these things. It's like a muscle you have to build through exercise, through leveraging it. Which is why as a guardian, as a parent, the best and most important thing you can do for your child is to help them develop an intellect. Is to help them exercise this muscle of thinking. See, I observed something very interesting. Very, very interesting, and a wonderful lesson for all parents, particularly. I was in the London Tube, in the London Underground, right? A couple of weeks ago. And in the London Underground, there are multiple ways to get to multiple places, right? Now, you tell me what you would do in this situation. Suppose you've traveled a particular route and you know it very, very well. And you're about to take that, you have to get to your destination, you have to take one particular train, change your destination, and take another train. There may be other routes, they may be longer, maybe you have to make extra stops, so you have to take a longer route. So you know this. Now someone comes in and says, okay, let me look for another option. Let me look for another option. Let me see if there is any other way to get there. What will be your immediate reaction?
I'll say वो मेरे को पता है वही best है, हम तो उसी से जाएंगे.
He's being silly.
I know it, man. Oof, don't waste time.
Why waste time?
No, explore it. Explore the alternative.
Now, I hope you're like that, right? See, our general reaction is, I know it. And a lot of times, particularly to our children, we don't want to educate them. We want to tell them what we know. It's a big difference. We think we want
Closed
to.
mind.
So
You have a closed mind.
sure. So we saw this. I saw this in the London Tube. A child made a parent stop and said, "Oh, let me look if there's another way. I'd like to see." And the parent was so conscious. They said, "Yeah, sure. Have a look. Please let me know if there's something." And this happened for 2 minutes. And then he said, "No, you're right. We should just go this way." You ended up doing what? You ended up making the same decision, right? But what was the journey? What was the exercise? The child thought for itself, made an assessment, came to a conclusion that, okay, what they were considering was wrong, and they should just do what the parent was asking them to do. It's a small episode. But just the way in which they came to that conclusion was so wonderful. What happened? There, the child was given the capacity to think, the child was given the capacity to judge and make a decision based on their judgment. Are we more interested in just showering our, those under our guardianship with our opinions? Or are we truly teaching them the capacity to think, reason, judge, decide? Big difference. So, developing one's intellect is perhaps the greatest gift, right? Facilitating the development of one's intellect is the greatest gift you can give another human being. So, human nature is aggressive and passive. One aggressive is one who leverages their intellect, who is more driven by the buddhi, one who has and when we say intellect, we don't mean intellect versus mind. We say the intellect is guiding and regulating the mind. The mind is there. There are emotions, there are feelings, no doubt. But there is a sense of objectivity. Objectivity doesn't mean no emotion. Objectivity means intellect's capacity to guide one's emotions, to keep it in perspective, to keep it under control. Otherwise, emotions run havoc. As opposed to aggressive is passive, those who lack a capacity of who lack a strong intellect, who are driven by the mind, who are driven by impulses, by feelings, by emotions. The large majority of humanity is passive. A small minority is aggressive. A small minority is aggressive. Now, within the aggressive, you have what is called aggressive good and aggressive bad. Similarly, in passive, you have passive good and passive bad. So good and bad are a further bifurcation. There's aggressive and passive, then there's good and bad. What is good? For all practical purposes, good means unselfish. Bad means selfish. So aggressive good means one who is not only using one's buddhi, not only is driven by one's a clear head, but is also unselfish, is driven by dharma, righteousness, one who works selflessly for the welfare of all, to an extent where they are able to even manipulate others for the welfare, for the good. That's the lesson Krishna has taught us, that it's okay to even manipulate others. Arjuna manipulated Krishna multiple times in the Mahabharata. Then there are aggressive bad, those who are driven by the buddhi, but just buddhi is not enough. Without values, without dharma, without unselfishness, you can use the same buddhi to perform terrible activities, to manipulate, right? To rob a bank. Why rob a bank? Even in one's own family, we have people who manipulate each other. We have family members who manipulate each other, who cunningly think and try to do bad. Brothers against brothers, cousins against cousins, husbands against wives, or vice versa, wives against husbands. Cunningly work for one's personal motives. Aggressive bad means आप सोच रहे हो, आप प्लान कर रहे हो, आप षड्यंत्र रच रहे हो, पर with a selfish motive. So you're manipulating and doing bad. You're trying to use others for your own personal ends. So the general tendency is that most people fall into the passive category, and the aggressive bad make use of it. The aggressive bad know how to manipulate, right? So who are the passive? Passive good are those who are unselfish by nature, but because of their lack of buddhi, they are unable to make any good use of it, right? Steer it for any meaningful outcome. Whereas the passive bad are those who are selfish by nature and are easily influenced into doing bad things. They may not actively, plan and program things to do terrible things, but they're easily given into negativities, right? So Arjuna falls into category right now, the way he is behaving, he falls into the category of a passive good. And a passive good person is easily manipulated by an aggressive bad, right? So what is I don't desire any of this. What avail is kingdom? Arjuna doesn't know what he's talking. And we'll continue with 33 and 34. Prachi, I'll take the question I'll just finish these two verses and we'll take the question at the end of class, yeah? येषामर्थे काङ्क्षितं नः राज्यं भोगः सुखानि च त इमेव स्थिता युद्धे प्राणां त्यक्त्वा धनानि च आचार्याः पितरः पुत्राः तथैव च पितामहाः मातुलाः श्वशुराः पौत्राः शाल्या सम्बन्धिनस्तथा. So Arjuna continues in his speech. He says, those for whose sake we desire kingdom, enjoyments and pleasures, they stand here in battle, having renounced their lives and riches. Teachers, fathers, sons and also grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law and kinsmen. So Arjuna continues in his justification. He says, look, for those for whom you say for kingdom, we are fighting this war for kingdom. Those for whom we desire kingdom, look at them. They have renounced everything. Why shouldn't we renounce our petty desire? Very easy to believe Krishna. Look at them. They stand here in battle against us. They have renounced their lives. They have sacrificed their lives. They are fighting. See, if you think about it, he's not speaking any sense. There also, Duryodhana is fighting for the kingdom. But here Arjuna is just trying to, justify his stand. For those sake who we desire, those for whose sake we desire kingdom, enjoyments and pleasures. Are you telling me you are seeking enjoyments in kingdom for your friends and family and cousins? If that's so, that's the wrong reason to desire kingdom and enjoyments and pleasures, right? You take a kingdom with a sense of duty, not for the sake of, enjoying the position for the sake of yourself and your family. So people in such situations, when they try to justify an emotional weakness, they try to appear unselfish, they try to appear sacrificial, they try to appear as if they are renunciate, like Arjuna is trying to appear right now. And the whole problem is because instead of seeing enemies in battle, he is seeing teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers-in-law, grandsons, brothers-in-law, kinsmen. He's seeing his own kinsmen. That's the problem. He's not able to see it clearly. He's not objective. His buddhi's gone for a toss. So because his buddhi's gone for a toss, He is becoming a victim of his own emotions. And he continues. एतान् हन्तुमिच्छामि ज्ञातोऽपि मधुसूदन अपि त्रैलोक्यराज्यस्य हेतोः किं नु मही कृते एतान् हन्तुमिच्छामि ज्ञातोऽपि मधुसूदन अपि त्रैलोक्यराज्यस्य हेतोः किं नु मही कृते. These I do not wish to kill, even though killed by them, O Madhusudana, even for the sovereignty of the three worlds, how then for the earth? So Arjuna continues in his glorious grandstanding. The word for this is grandstanding. You know what grandstanding means? Trying to appear larger than, try to speak so big that one appears bigger and larger and higher and more important than one actually is. These I do not wish to kill. I don't wish to kill them. Even if I'm killed by them, they can kill me, but I don't wish to kill them. What drama. See, one would be if Arjuna was truly this sacrificial, right? Then he would have just walked away from everything. He would have just laughed at Duryodhan. Oh, you petty man, you're doing all these terrible things just for kingdom. That would have been a sage. That was Pandava and Kaurava's uncle, Vidur. He walked away from all of this. He laughed at them. Stupidity. He was a sage. So either you're a sage who has no value for all of these things and you see the hollowness. You don't have to take such grand stands. Oh, I don't mind being killed, but I don't want to kill them. What is all this rubbish? Who do you want to prove that you're unselfish? See, those who want to appear unselfish, please remember this. Those who want to appear unselfish are generally not unselfish. Those who want to appear great, those who want to appear very kind are actually not very kind. Kindness, unselfishness, a sense of renunciation is always generally quiet. अपने लिए ताली नहीं बजाते वो. The left hand doesn't know what the right hand is giving. True givers, true unselfish people, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is giving. There is no advertisement of it, there is no grandstanding of it, there is no demonstration of it. It's done quietly. There's no announcement. And here you have Arjuna, these I do not wish to kill, even though are killed by them. He wants to appear as if he's very sacrificial. Even for the sovereignty of the three worlds, how then for the earth? I will not kill these people even for the sake of the sovereignty of the three worlds, of the three lokas, of the three realms. This is a metaphysical concept, the three realms. Whether it's the waking dream or deep sleep, whether it's heaven, earth and hell, Akash, Patal. I mean, there are many interpretations to Trilokyam. Then how then for the earth? What he's trying to say is, I will not kill them for any circumstance. I will not kill them for any sake, even if the entire sovereignty of this world is at stake. I would rather have a dictatorial rule over the world. I would rather have demons rule over this world than kill these people. That's what he's saying. This is where they give themselves away. Too much emotion. See, 33 and 34, you would have thought, okay, Arjuna is very sacrificial, he's making sense. 35, you're like, okay, maybe he's talking a little rubbish. He's getting a little ahead of himself. Verse number 36. We'll conclude with this verse. We won't complete it because it's a beautiful concept, but just like last time I left you with something to think about, this time I'll leave you with something to think about. Verse number 36. निहत्यधार्तराष्ट्रान्नः काः प्रीति स्या जनार्दन पापमेवाश्रयेदस्मान् हत्वैतानाततायिनः निहत्यधार्तराष्ट्रान्नः काः प्रीति स्या जनार्दन पापमेवाश्रयेदस्मान् हत्वैनाताननात् natatayinaha. He says, what pleasure is there in slaying the sons of Dhritarashtra? Nihatya Dhatarashtran ka priti. Having slain them, what will be the pleasure? What will I get out of it? Oh Janardana, what will I get out of killing them? Janardana is a name for Krishna. It literally means Jana. Jana means people. Janardana means a protector of the people. What pleasure, what will I get out of having slain these sons of Dhritarashtra, these Kauravas? And he says, sin, papam, sin alone will accrue to us by killing these desperados. Sin alone will accrue to us by killing these desperados. Acha, 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 acha. Right now, you were calling these people very sacrificial, having renounced their riches and lives. Now you're calling them desperados. Make up your mind, buddy. See, these are all insights to actually just to understand that Arjuna is in an oscillating state of mind. Please understand, we are talking through all of this. Krishna was silent. He was just observing all of this. Krishna is silent, quiet, not saying a word. We have so many opinions about what Arjuna is saying. Imagine what Krishna must be thinking, but he was quiet. So, what pleasure is slaying? Sin alone will accrue. Papam, mujhe paap chadega. Like we usually say, na? Paap chadega. Funny concepts we have of punya hoga, paap chadega. Ye karoge to punya hoga, ye karoge to paap hoga. I'm going to bust this concept for now, for once. I'm going to say something that's very controversial. Okay? Sin, papam. And this is a concept that was given out by Swami Ramatirtha, one of the most exceptional philosophers at the turn of the 20th century, late 19th, early 20th century. He passed away in the early 20th century. He never wrote any books, but he has all his lectures in a volume called Inwards of God Realization. Incredible soul. Swami Ramatirtha. So he gave this concept. What is sin? Now we think sin is in some kind of negative action. अगर कुछ गलत करो, कुछ खराब करो, तो हमें पाप चढ़ेगा. Right? This is what Arjuna is saying. If I do this, मुझे पाप चढ़ेगा. And if sin will accrue, then bad things will happen. It's bad for me. Sin is not in the action. No action is sinful per se. No action is sinful per se. See, suppose a human being kills another human being. Is it sinful? Tell me what you want to say. What's your first impulse based on what you know? Is it sinful?
It depends upon the circumstances.
The intention.
Okay,
The intention.
suppose I intend to kill also. Is it sinful? I intend to kill someone and I kill them. Is it sinful?
Yes.
It is sinful.
It is not sinful.
Okay. Tell me
Law.
what you want to say. Tell me what you want to say. Don't tell me you've heard this concept before, so let's not cheat. Suppose if you want to say that I intend to kill them and I kill them. Okay, I have negative intent also. I have vicious intent also. I want to kill them. Now suppose a tiger in Bandhavgarh National Park. A tiger in Bandhavgarh National Park kills another human. Is it sinful? Intends to kill for hunger, for thirst, with all the salivation, tiger wants to kill. Is it sinful?
No.
No.
Not
What-
for the time.
What's the line? Why? On the one hand, you're saying it's sinful. On the other, what is sin? What makes something sinful? Is killing the sin?
No.
What is?
Thought.
The action.
Right now you said action. Action is not.
Intention.
Now you're saying. I'm saying
Intention.
huh?
Intention.
Intention.
Whether your intent is to cause harm or whether your intent is to cause good.
So,
You know,
Tiger wants to cause good. Tiger wants to cause terrible harm. Tiger wants that he's able to get to the core of your, beyond your ribs. He wants to reach the core of your organs so that he can tear it out. And he wants to make sure that he gets the juiciest part of your flesh. He wants to cause harm.
no, in the
He-
thought of the tiger, he's doing no harm. वो उसका कर्म है, वो उसका
How do you
खाना.
know? How do you know he's not
How
doing
do I
harm?
know?
He's not doing harm. You think a tiger doesn't know that he's. You think see, animals are able to feel emotion.
Yeah.
You think animals cannot identify that the other animal I'm about to kill is terrified? Animals
But do
can.
they kill for pleasure? A tiger kills only when he's hungry.
So pleasure is sin.
No, but a tiger
Bound by
kills
his
when he's
nature.
hungry.
I'm only asking questions. Don't get me wrong. Okay, I'm going to.
No,
I want this. I want this back and forth because I'm trying to understand what is the line. So
But sir, the difference between tiger and human is the intellect which we were talking about. So if a tiger kills it, I mean, as it is, they aren't intellectual or they are intellect.
the man had no intellect. His parents didn't help him develop an intellect.
That's
Okay. The person was a madman. Let's say that he was a madman. He was cuckoo. He become a serial killer. Sorry for this ghastly example, but but just to drive home a point. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just trying to understand what is that line where you call something sinful and when you don't call something sinful. You're saying it could be action. No, it's not action. You're saying it could be intent to cause hurt. No, it's probably not that. You're saying, oh, whether it's done for pleasure or not pleasure. My question is everything you do for pleasure then sinful? Is it bad to do something for pleasure? What else could it be?
Vasanas.
What is
Your
that?
perception.
अगर मुझे लगता है गलत है तो वो sinful है.
Your perception of the action.
Yes.
What is the perception of the action? What does that mean?
I mean, for example, the madman, right? He has no conception of the wrong he's doing. So for him, like even if by objective standards of society it's a crime, for him he has no remorse or regret over it. But whereas someone who feels sort of knows he's doing wrong and still commits it, he knows, he can perceive that whatever action he's taking is for his personal greed, like, you kill someone for money or whatever, or to get something. I mean, he knows he's doing wrong. So, I mean, he has a perception that he's doing wrong. He'll probably feel some sort of emotional affliction because of that. So, yeah. He'll
So
feel he's committing a sin.
Agitation in one's own mind.
sure. So
नहीं, यहाँ अंतःकरण जो है वो क्या बोलता है वो देखना पड़ेगा.
correct. So I was trying to come to that. I was just trying to build a bridge towards what, say, a general consensus is, and what this concept is, right? Because we often think that, oh, the action is what is necessarily sinful, and it's something about our intent in the action that makes it sinful. It's neither of that. The sin has nothing to do with the action. The sin has also nothing to do with the intent in the action. Sin has to do with one's reaction to the action. Sin has to do with one's reaction to the action. If one reacts to the action with a sense of regret because of the way, as Ankit said, the way in which one perceives the action, the way in which one reacts to the action. And if they have a sense of regret, if they have a sense of remorse, if they have a reaction where they realize what they did was perhaps wrong, then one has sinned. But if one doesn't feel that reaction, now that if one doesn't feel a reaction, then they're not sinning. Now that doesn't feel could be for two reasons. One is clear about what they have done, or one has absolutely no awareness of what they have done. Both are true. Either you are clear of what you have done and why you have done it. You may have caused harm to another. You may have caused pain to another. Sometimes you have to be cruel only to be kind, right? But you are clear for the right reasons. You have done it. And so you don't feel a sense of remorse. Or you've said anything and everything, you've cursed them, you've said something silly, but you're not even conscious of it. Then also you're not remorseful. So you may not have a reaction for both reasons. Either you are very clear or you have no awareness also. In either case, you have not sinned. If you have a reaction, if you have a feeling of guilt, then you have sinned. Period.
So then someone, sir, whose intellect is not developed, he will never be sinful.
No. See, why do we want people to be sinful? See, we almost think of it as a badge of, putting the sin is a stepping stone to growth, and this is what we'll talk about next class. I won't conclude it this time, but you grow through your sins. This is what we want to say. If you have a sense of remorse, if you have a sense of a reaction, it makes you think, it helps you grow, and it helps you grow into that state of doing the right things for the right reasons and being objective. So with that thought, we'll close today's class, but this is something controversial to think about. This is something that, what is papa? What is sin? It is not necessarily in some kind of action per se that is necessarily sinful. So don't let others put you into a guilt trap to do or not do something, right? With that thought, we'll conclude today. Ankit, you had another question.
So it again, comes back to clarity of thought.
Indeed. Indeed. Yeah, Ankit, you had a question.
No, it's okay. I'll just ask.
Okay.
I'll just.
Okay, with that thought, we'll conclude today. We've already shot over time. So thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you again on Thursday. And
Hari Om, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.